Welcome live to this special edition of the hashtag Let's Get Louder LMF's podcast. 3 straight podcasts in a row. I am your host, the Loud Miami Fan, at Loud Miami Fan on your favorite social media platform, whether that's X, Twitter, whether that's Instagram, or maybe it's TikTok. Either way, you can friend me there, you can converse with me there. But before you do, right now, if you're listening on the YouTube, please go to click that subscribe button. And then when this is over, hit that like button and leave a comment. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this show and go back and look at the archives of past shows. And on today's episode of the hashtag Let's Get Louder LMF's podcast, we are going to discuss the division series that have started today. It is about 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern when I'm recording this. So the Padres game is on right now. That's the Padres who have a 5-3 lead as of this podcast being recorded. So we're not going to really focus on that one, which is live right now. We're going to discuss the others. And if you hear some snoring in the background, not sure what this microphone is picking up right now, that is my beautiful French bulldog because it is past her bedtime. As I'm still waiting for the Miami Hurricanes game to start. Imagine this, podcast listener. I have watched 7 or 8 college football games today. I have watched 3 plus MLB playoff games. I have watched a WWE PLE in Bad Blood. And I've watched the Penguin episode 2 on Max. And I'm still here up drinking coffee because the Miami Hurricanes game has not started yet. As you see, if you're watching on YouTube Live, I am wearing my Miami Hurricanes gear. Go Canes, go. I am the Loud Miami Fan, although this podcast really gears more towards baseball. But we can always change up the content, right? Can't believe Alabama lost, speaking of college football. Vandy beating Alabama today. What a shocker. Vandy winning 40-35. Craziness. So, with that said, what do I think of the outcomes of today's playoff games? Well, let's start with the first game that is going to be on TBS throughout these playoffs, this series, and also available on Max for those streaming this series. It was the Kansas City Royals. Nope, sorry, that game's on right now. I looked up. Brain fart. It was the Detroit Tigers at Cleveland Guardians. And from the beginning of the game, you would have thought that the Tigers would come in hot. A.J. Hinch bringing them in hot. They just swept Houston. They had a great series before that. And before that, they've been the best team since, I think, August 12th. But no, the Detroit Tigers go into Cleveland, a in-division rival, both of them in the AL Central. You'd think it'd be a close game. The Tigers, again, the hottest team. Well, Cleveland Guardians showed why. They are the top seed in that division. They are the division winners. They won 7 of 13 games versus the Detroit Tigers throughout the season. And in this game, they take game 1 with a score of 7-0. Yep, the Guardians are the first team in a long time to manhandle the Tigers. Not much to speak about that game, just a great overall game by the Guardians, who actually took their pitcher out before Bibby, I believe, came out of the game before he even got the record of the win. I think they pulled him after 4.2 innings, went to their bullpen, and that bullpen had a great game, giving up no runs as well. Maybe a hit here, maybe a hit there, but it didn't matter. Got out of jams, and the Cleveland Guardians showing why they are the division winners, and they come out with the victory. Congrats. It's just one game, but it is a game out of 5. So the Guardians need 2 more out of 4, where the Tigers, again, have to heat up now. The Guardians coming off the break, you think would have to get some rust off, but they did not. They scored 5 of their runs in their first inning, just really owning the starter of that game. Guardians take game 1. They lead the series 1-0 in the best of 5. Now we move on to the Mets at Philadelphia game. And this game, I'll talk a little bit more in depth about because I watched it from the first pitch to the end. I was on a space recording with some people, and they heard me be the loud Miami fan. Of course, in this particular time, I wasn't cheering for any Miami team, but I was cheering for, in this series, I am rooting for the New York Mets. Ugh. And again, it's so hard for me to even say that. And it's harder for me to say that I'm rooting for the New York Yankees because it's Jazz Chisholm Jr. But focus on one game right now in the Mets at Phillies. Now, why would me, the loud Miami fan, ever think of cheering for a Mets team, a team that is in our division, a team that I go back and forth with their fans on X and Instagram, in person at Lone Depot Park? Well, quite simple. I hate, hate, hate with a big H, Philadelphia Philly fans. I don't like the Mets team. I don't like the Phillies team. So for me, it comes down to the fan base. Now, Met fans all have their issues. They're loudmouth. They think they own the league. They have the richest owner. Last 2 seasons, the season when they signed Starling Marte, the season where they got Lindor, Marte, where they were leading the division for a while. They talked a bunch of garbage that year. Their fans, speaking of. And the team itself, of course, did not live up to it, losing the division lead sometime in September to the Braves, who ultimately won the division. This was the year after the Braves World Series victory in 2022. But my respect for Met fans goes back beyond that. I visited Citi Field when the Mets weren't that good in 2013. 13, I believe it was 13, not 14. I believe it was 13. May have been 14, but I believe it was 13 in the summer of 2013. I visited Citi Field for the first and only time, and their fans were nice to me. I was in my Marlins hat then. I was dressed in Marlins gear for that game. No one heckled me. In fact, I enjoyed an old school waffle or something with a guy and his son. They had leftovers. They shared with me. Nice people, good people at that game. Again, not saying that Met fans are perfect because they're definitely not. But let's talk Philadelphia Philly fans. Why I'm rooting for the Mets is because I hate the Philadelphia Philly fans. There are some nice ones. My stepbrother, my stepmother, nice people. Although my stepbrother takes it a little too personal sometimes. Cocky Philly fans for no reason. Because, yeah, they made the World Series a couple years ago. They won the division this year, but they haven't won a World Series since 2008, I believe it was. The Mets just took game one, and we'll get to that versus Kansas City. So, go to Philadelphia for the first time. My first time in Philadelphia. And this was 2010. Yes, 2010. I visited Philly for the first time. It was my first time ever in another team's stadium. I didn't, this is before the Miami Marlins, so this is still Florida Marlin time. And this is before they even came out with that Billy hat that I'm known for. But I was wearing Marlins gear. Uh, and apparently they didn't appreciate that. And I'll fast forward to when I went there last year in 2023. Same type of treatment, same belligerent, not even drunk fans, just belligerently loud and obnoxious fans screaming, "Why are you here? Fuck the Marlins! Bleep the Marlins!" Sorry, I cursed for those younger age listening. Bleep you! Get out of our bleeping city! Get out of our bleeping stadium! Bleep, bleep, bleep! Marlins! Bleep, bleep, bleep! Marlins! Mind you, we were losing that game probably by 7 or 6 runs the whole game. We had one inning, I believe it was the third inning, where we got some runs, but it wasn't like the Marlins were going to come back. Philly fans are belligerently obnoxious and they mistreat other people. Look, I I go to a ballpark the majority of my baseball experiences where my team is overwhelmed by visiting team fans. So I see all different types of fans. Milwaukee fans are a little bit obnoxious too. Most are nice. There are some. Brave fans, mostly nice, but they have a reason to be obnoxious. Their team just won a World Series 3 years ago, and they make the playoffs every year, just about. Since the beginning of my time as a Marlins baseball fan, it's always been the Braves in the playoffs for the most part. But Philly fans, even in my own ballpark, treat us fans wrong. But being in their ballpark the first time, I was mentioning in 2010, I was getting peanuts thrown at me. I'm lucky. I know I'm lucky it wasn't batteries, right? But peanuts were being thrown at me. People spent money, probably around that time, $6, $7 a bag of peanuts to throw them at a fan who's 5'3" at the time, and we'd 118, 120. I only cheer for my team when they do something well. I don't cheer against your team in your own ballpark. Marlins score a run. Yeah, go Marlins. Josh Johnson pitching that game in 2010. I think it was 9. Whatever. It was Josh Johnson. It was the rematch, him versus Roy Halladay. Rest in peace, Roy Halladay. But it was the rematch the week after the perfect game by Halladay in Miami. So it was the rematch. It was like Giancarlo Stanton or Mike Stanton at the time's first ever series. Made his debut the day before I went to the ballpark for the first time ever. Ended up going to 2 out of the 3 games there. But the fans were obnoxious. Sorry, it was a 2 game set. I went to one of the 2 games there. The fans were obnoxious. The fans were belligerent. The fans are just jerks. Last year, when I went, it was the same type of treatment. I was with my stepbrother and stepmother, again, Philly fans in their Philly gear. I was with my father, who was in a Jazz Chisholm shirt that I had gotten him. In respect to me, he wore it. Didn't really want to because deep down, he's a Philly fan. He grew up in West Philadelphia, born and raised. Maybe he was East. I don't know. He grew up somewhere in Philadelphia. He had a lot of games over at the vet in the ballpark before that. He would always tell me about. But in this particular time, he was wearing the Marlins for me. He didn't get picked on. No, he's of size. But me, I'm, of course, in my new gear where I wear the Billy hat. I'm all Marlin decked out. I'm walking around the stadium. People are screaming at me, F the Marlins, F this, F that. We did win that series 2-3. Of course, the series that matters is the City Wild Card. We got shut out there. But this is before that, right? And even as I said, in this game last year, Marlins were down. This was a bad game for us. So Philly fans, jerks. Except the Fanatic crew, who's located. They sit in above the stairs in center field, as high as you can go. They're the last row in the ballpark. The Fanatic crew, really nice people, there to have a good time, talk some shiz. But again, it's respectful. They weren't throwing things at me. They weren't being mean. Taking pictures with me. They were excited that I came to visit. Good people, and I will always thank them for that. But the majority of the fans at that ballpark are obnoxious. They're rude. They treat players like crap, and some of them are say negative things towards players of Latin descent. They're racist sometimes. This is coming from players. Players say this stuff, and they talk a lot of shiz to the players. Fans spend money. They can boo the away team. They shouldn't be talking crap to them. The players talking about their families. The players can't fight back, right? They're not allowed, and if they do, they get suspended. They don't need to say any racial slur or any hateful slur, but players can't really even talk back at all. If a fan says, go bleep your mom, or negative, again, anything towards the players can't fight back. They can't say anything back. They'll get suspended. So these fans should not be talking that way to players because the players can't fight back. Mets won. And it was glorious because let's talk about the game itself. It was Roy Halladay-esque. It was no-hitter-esque in the playoffs, except there was one hit given up by Zach Wheeler of 7 innings, 1 hit, baseball. Cody Azinga, he gave up 1 home run. That was his really only blemish of the game. The first batter of the game, of course, coming off the injury, probably his adrenaline was going. Cody Azinga gave up the home run. Phillies had a lead, 1-0 through the 7th. Then comes the top of the 8th. And remember, these Mets don't give up. These Mets do not give up. These Mets opened a can of whoop ass on the Phillies bullpen. Not just 1, 2, 3. I think there was 4 pitchers used. 3, if not 4 pitchers used in that inning to get 3 outs. But all that mattered was at the end of the inning was that 5-1 stat. That was the score going out of the top of the 8th, and all that air, all those excited jerk fans in Philadelphia at the ballpark, Citizens Bank ballpark, all those rude, shiz talking, obnoxious fans. How excited was it to see them shut the heck up and be put in their fan base seats? Before the game, players of the Phillies, including their leader, Bryce Harper, was asked, will the extended time off hurt your team? And he said, no, it's a good thing. Because remember, in the last 2 years, Philadelphia has been a wild card team. In the year that they made the World Series, they were the hottest team. Coming in, they made a run. They beat the Braves in the divisional round. Braves, of course, had the National League East. Last year, same thing, same result. Philadelphia beats the Marlins, best of 3, sweeps them in 2. Goes against the Braves, wins 1 game in Atlanta. 1 game at home. 2 games at home, I'm sorry. Knocked the Braves out in 5. This year, Bryce Harper says, won't affect us. We're enjoying it. Helps us get away from our injuries. Unfortunately, you know what happened? Not unfortunately. Fortunately, you know what happened? Their bats were flat. Flat like the Atlanta Braves were after their long break last 2 seasons. And Philadelphia Phillies lose at home. That's important here. At home in a best of 5 series, they lose at home game 1. Not saying it'll happen, but if the Mets take game 2, they have 2 shots to take the series, just like Atlanta had happened to them 2 years ago, I believe, in 22, versus those Phillies who time off doesn't hurt them. Well, it hurt them. And the red hot comeback Mets do it again. They win the game. A little heart scare. Phillies score 1 in the 9th. Versus their battered bullpen. Diaz wasn't warming up. At the end, he was. But a couple pitchers they had to go through in the Mets. He was one, actually. I think he got out of the game. Nope, it was 2. He didn't get out of the game. And ultimately, the final score being 6-2. Philly added on one. Sorry, Mets added on 1 run in the top of the 9th, brought them to 6. Phillies leave men on base, bottom of the 9th, lose the game, and it's magic. Beautiful to see. The air sucked out, and all those shiz-talking fans on social media crying like little babies. I usually don't find pleasure in other fans' pain. Although part of sports and experiencing the jubilation of a championship, which I have twice for the Miami Marlins, Florida Marlins, both times. 1997, I was 13. I talk openly about me being at the ballpark for all of the home playoff games in 2003, including the 3 World Series games that were down here. Game 3 of the series, which we lost, 4-5 we won. History winning in the old Yankee Stadium, the real Yankee Stadium, to win the World Series. Wasn't it there, but I was here watching. I'd like to discuss one day that Chicago series in detail. That was rough. As I said, being a fan, you go through the losses. Milwaukee fans crying right now. You go through the losses. So one day when you do win it all, you've earned that jubilation. You're not a bandwagon, right? Still feel for the Milwaukee fans who lost that game to that amazing home run by Pete Alonso. So Philly loses. Mets are up 1-0 with game 2, also in Philadelphia, best of 5. The New York Yankees versus the hot Kansas City Royals. Apparently, before my time in the 70s and 80s, this was a huge rivalry. Good thing for me. I get to relive it now, and I'm actually rooting for the Yankees, who have Jazz Chisholm Jr. and John Birdie from last year's playoff Marlins. Jazz brought me back to baseball. I can't explain that more than I have on the former episodes. If you don't know that story, I'm happy to do a whole episode on it again, and maybe I will. But Jazz brought me back to baseball in 2020. After my brother died in 2017, I was very down. Jose Fernandez had died a year before. The players, Giancarlo Stanton, Real Muto, Christian Yelich, Marcelo Zuna, all the players I had some sort of relationship. This is before the Twitter and stuff that I didn't use at the time. I had some sort of relationship with these players, and they were all traded. That paired with my brother's death, I couldn't watch baseball. I went to opening day, but I did not attend any other Marlins baseball games that entire season in 2019 or 18, except for opening day. it hurt me to watch baseball. Not because we were losing, that I'm used to, but it was what connected my brother and I in a lot of our conversations. With that being said, Jazz Chisholm joins the Marlins at the 19 deadline. He comes up during the COVID year where really we were looking for something to watch on TV. And throughout the season, I really got hooked on and conversed with these players through social media because that was the only way to talk with the Marlins back then, that season, the shortened season. Jazz Chisholm's electricity brought me to the game, brought me back to the game. Even for the short period of time that he was up here that season, it was then into 2021 at spring training, West Palm Beach versus the Nationals, separated seats, half-filled ballpark. Jazz Chisholm Jr. hits a home run on the third pitch of the game. Again, it's spring training, doesn't matter. Isan Diaz was the starting second baseman, supposed to be that season because of the trade and his pedigree and him being a top-ranked prospect and whatnot. But Jazz beat him out for that role. And since that home run, I've built a relationship with Jazz. He knew my name. I went up to him and said, "Hello, Chase." I thought that was awesome. And I'll always greatly appreciate Jazz for his electricity that he brought to Home Depot Park, and he brought me into baseball. And that's why it's been hard, and there wasn't a lot of recording because I went back into this baseball depression. Although I attended 7 games since the trade deadline between August and September, the end of September, for home games. I attended 7 of them between that period after the trades. I was very happy with who we got, Connor Norby. I've tried to reach out to these guys. They just haven't answered their messages, but I hope to build a relationship with them as well. I'm getting too old to be so obnoxious myself. Anyway, so the Mets and Kansas City Royals went back and forth in this game. Royals took the lead. Mets took the lead. Royals took the lead. Mets tied. Mets. I'm so sorry from the. Yeah, let's start that again. Royals took the lead. Yankees took the lead. Royals took the lead back. Yankees tied the game. It is now the, I believe, 8th inning? No, 7th inning. Jazz Chisholm Jr. gets on base. Jazz Chisholm Jr. steals second base. Chisholm Jr. gets to third base on an out. Jazz Chisholm Jr. gets knocked in for the game win. Ball. Jazz Chisholm Jr. is the game-winning run for the New York Yankees, who beat the Royals in Game 1 to take their own series lead. Congrats, Jazz. Congrats, Yankees. I'm so very happy for Jazz. I really am. Like, there will probably never be another baseball player who I will enjoy as much as I did watching Jazz. And this is through all time Marlins. I had my favorites, Chucky Carr, growing up. Jazz reminded me a lot of him. Reminds me, not reminded. Reminds me a lot of him with his oomph and his personality. He knows how good he is and can and will be. I still have a relationship with Dane Myers. Building on that, Dane's a great kid. I hope he has done enough to earn the starting role this season. We know that he will be back next season, and hopefully he earned that starting role. So now that brings us to the final game with a minute left. San Diego is up 5-4. This game is close. Both starters are out of the game. Jeff Passan showing his bias, showing Shohei Ohtani's home run and not Manny Machado's home run in the first or second inning. Either way, Padres are up, and I'm openly cheering for the Padres in the National League. If I want a team to win the National League, it is the Padres. I have said this on my last episode with Luis Arraez. I said it with Tanner Scott, Brian Hoeing, all the Padres who are Marlins from last year. I hope it is Yankees Padres in this World Series. But they got to get through this round first. This has been a special edition of LMF hashtag Let's Get Louder podcast. I thank you for listening. Hit that subscribe, hit that like. If you don't like it, listen to the next episode. See if you do. But please subscribe on whatever platform you're watching this on. And if you're not watching on the YouTube and you want to see the faces and see the personality really come out, please go to type in hashtag Let's Get Louder at LMF Podcast. That is my channel. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, hit that like button, comment, and also subscribe. Appreciate everyone. And don't forget to add me at Loud Miami Fan. I really would love to hear your feedback. Let's get louder together. There'll be more episodes like this throughout the playoffs. And go to intheclutch.com. Intheclutch.com. Use LMF at checkout. Have a great night. Let's frickin' go.